Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. I'm Christian, your host, and today we will talk about something personal, but it's deeply universal. And that's for me is becoming the leader you wish you had. So most of us didn't grow up with that perfect leadership around us. Maybe some of you guys were Bush, but you weren't really seeing it. Maybe you had somebody around who didn't really do what you expected him to do. Either way, you learned and you succeeded. So for me in this episode, we gonna talk about and reflect about how to become a better leader, not just how to become and how to work for somebody who is a better leader. So let's get into it. Once again, my name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. And thanks for being here today. If you can, just leave us a like below or click the notification bell on top so you know every time we have a new episode coming out. Mondays, we have some interviews for you from people which we feel are really good in what they do and are trendsetters in their field and in their capabilities. And on Friday, you have just me. So, what is the leadership gap? And you guys know I like to break this down into a few segments. So, for me, I want to talk about what is the leadership gap and how do you get from leadership pain to having not purpose. And then for me, I wanted to see we often repeat any of the experiences, good or bad. So leadership becomes really what are we doing instead of what's universal. So for me, a personal example is I have worked for somebody and I always thought he was a really good leader. And that's back a few years ago. And for me, he was aggressive, he was dismissive, and it totally burnt me out. So for me, it was not a good experience. But what I learned is what I didn't want to do. What I learned is how I could become a better leader and how I really want to lead when I get the opportunity. So for me, I always ask myself, am I leading from a place of reflection or is it a place of reaction? So for me, that's really, really crucial. So, and for me, the insight, what I learned is if your team is confused, instead of for you just to check it out, it's most likely coming from the leadership you have, or the leadership you're trying to pursue, or the leadership you follow. So for me, if your team is confused, instead of working it out, it's likely mirroring that they do what they see from the top, and it's as simple as that. So next, I wanted to talk to you about what you need and the changes. So what you need from, I call it what you need then and now. So for me, um, what kind of leaders did you wish you had growing up in the industry? Where did they work really well under pressure? Where did they work really well in teaching everybody? Where did they work really well in believing in other people's potential? For me, that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to start and talk about leadership, why I wanted to have not just a leadership forum. Our listeners know we have a nonprofit, which is the Culinary Leadership Academy. And that was all born out of what I seen. And that's exactly the questions I just asked. I wanted to see, did my leadership work well under pressure? And then also, did I teach instead of tearing people down? And do I believe in my team's potential? For me, that's super crucial importance. And for me, if you're a leader or not, you need to picture yourself first, kitchen's first gig, a first mistake. So, what did the version you were here? And now, where did that version go? Or where do you go and your team, the week following? So for me, it's one of those things. And for me, I talk about leadership a lot. Leadership needs to come from within you. And for me, I worked for an amazing human, and his name was Carl Fürtinger. And what I loved about him, he was always the same. And so for me, I looked at leadership that it needs to be consistent. He always looked out for people more than for the company sometimes, because he made sure that the people were taken care of, because he kept saying, without the team, we have nothing. And then also for me, what I loved about him is he gave you the attention if you needed it. And he was also very tough on us when we made mistakes. And when we made, especially mistakes on things, he taught us a few weeks before. So for me, it's really important around leadership to do pause and reflect. And what did you need in your life? Because what you need right now might be a lot different than what you're going to need in a few weeks, or what you needed a few weeks ago. So for me, that was really, really a great thing. And then for me, I have a marketing angle around that, I call it, because your brand of leadership is not just a market differentiator. It's the difference if somebody wants to work for you or not. How do you lead, and how does your team show up, and how your business gets talked about? So for me, that's really, really important, because at the end of the day, the leader you are reflects in the staff, and it reflects in the business, and people talk about it. So third, for me, is I wanted to talk about traits to model. And for me, that was a very interesting point, because for me, I always thought success leaves clothes. Success leaves something where I can go in and follow up on. But what I really learned were four things. And that's probably the key to all of the leadership. And these four traits are the leaders which I wish I had. And it's the four principles I follow in order to become a better leader. And for me, those four simple tools is what I want you to take as a takeaway, and maybe write in the comments below, what do you feel about them? Maybe comment below, hey, I thought about this, or I'm practicing that, or this is something my leader currently does, or I wish that he would do more of that. And so for me, the first thing around that is around clarity, because you need to be clear on your vision and be clear how you communicate it. Confusion breeds conflicts. And that's something I see and hear all the time. So clarity for me, number one, you need to be super clear on your vision and how you communicate it, because confusion does breed conflicts. The second thing I want to talk about is around consistency. How do you show up Monday morning to Friday afternoon, Saturday evening? The way you show up for other people is what people perceive about you. So for me, I learned this from my mentor, Carl, because Carl was the same. It didn't make a difference if he went to a customer, if he went to another employee, if he went to the owner of the company. He was always the same. And I absolutely love that about him. The third thing for me is around empathy. You need to understand your team's reality. High standards don't mean low humanity. So for me, is empathy is really understand what is your team going through. And it might be an up and down, and your leadership needs to be consistent around that. And that brings me to the fourth point, which is really simple. It's around accountability. You need to own your own mistake. And because if you get loud, you set the tone. So own your mistakes. And if you do that, you will become the leader you wish you had. So for me, the four things are clarity, is be clear on your vision and how you communicate it, because confusion does breed conflicts. The second thing is consistently, how do you show up every single day? How do you show up Mondays? How do you show up Fridays? How do you show up Sunday? The third thing is about empathy, because you really need to understand your team's reality. And finally, you do need to take accountability. You need to own your mistake, and you need to own them loudly. And that will set the tone. So you probably know that, but for me, there was one little phrase I learned from a friend of mine, and that says, "You don't earn trust by being perfect. You earn it by being present." And that was for me a key takeaway, because if you look at that, it's for me, I always thought, hey, certain events, it require a certain, not just reaction, but a certain way, the way I lead. And for me, having that and learning that from him is that you show up, and the way you show up and the way you present yourself is absolutely key. So you don't earn trust by being perfect. You earn it by being present. And it's one of the key things for that. So leadership, my leadership example for you is, team leads with clarity, team leads with empathy. If a team does lead with clarity and empathy, they have a 23% higher performance rate and a higher retention rate. This is not just soft skills, it's smart business skills. And that for me is super, super important. And finally, is how do you get from self leadership to team culture? And that's for me is, it's simple. The way you walk, and it's not just the way you walk, the way you talk to yourself becomes the way you lead others. And for me, that's a really clear point, because if I talk really harsh to myself, there's a very good chance that reflects in my leadership. If I'm chaotic, if I'm reactive, if I'm consistent, your team feels that. Don't flip out, create rituals, have boundaries, and create mental clarity. That's really, really important, because when you check your energy before every shift or every event or every meeting or every interaction, you will have a total different outcome for you long terms. So for me, I have a little bit of a checklist for you. And I have here for, if your presence sets the temperature, that's really clear for me. Want calm, have high performing teams, be calm, be high performing first. And for me, that's something I learned a long time ago. And that's exactly how I feel you become the leader you wanted to be and the leader you never had. You may not had that leader as you needed them, but you become the leader for your team, for your family, and for yourself if you follow the few steps above. Leadership isn't about control, it's about influence. It's not about knowing the right answers, it's about creating space for the right questions. And I have a little challenge for the week. Can you identify the needs, or what you need from your past leaders, and go and give it to somebody else, and do that today? So if you could please write below, what were some of the great leadership lessons you have learned? What were some of the great leadership skills you have seen? And also write below, because what is really important for me, that this little podcast we're doing, we don't just talk shop. We hopefully giving you some really good ideas on how to lead a better life and become a better leader and do more stuff in your industry. Because we lead, honestly, we lead with intentions. We build a vision and we grow honestly from the inside out. So this, if this resonates with you, share this with a leader you respect or someone who is becoming one. Because for me, it's not just the leader you currently are, it's who is the leader coming after you. For me, there's one thing to remember, that it it isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming present. And that's exactly where the transformation starts. For me, that's this as simple thing as what leadership is. It isn't about becoming perfect. It is about becoming present. And that's exactly where transformation starts. So, with that, I want to say thanks for being here today. I see you next Friday. If you have any comments or any other feedbacks, please leave that in the comments below. And then if you have some really good leadership skills, let us know, because we want to know that we make an impact for you and that we learn from you, because we all in this together. With that, I want to say thanks. My name is Christian. I'm the disruptive chef, host, entrepreneur. And for me, it's not just leading by example, it's leading with intention. Because if you're intentional with what you do, the way you speak, the way you behave, the way you react, that's really what leadership is. And you don't need the greatest leadership course, because I honestly believe that everybody has a leader within them. So for that, I want to say thanks for being here today. Thanks for checking us out. Make sure you like this episode, share it with somebody who you feel can learn from that. And again, if you have or want to hear some great interviews, come to us on Mondays. And if you want to hear my rant of what I learned for the week, come on Fridays. So with that, thanks everybody for being here today, and see you on Monday.